Good. So the recording has been initiated. So today we are going to try to convert this from using just JavaScript. So let's say um, I have project X I want to do. I have something to do on YouTube. So we are going to transform this from just using, so for project X, add page 1, add page X. So this is purely running using JavaScript, and it's kind of working out the way we expect it to do. So today we are going to convert this from just using JavaScript, and we can just literally drop the work of JavaScript here and go directly with the so-called the so-called what is it called? Yes, the so-called a PHP. So how can we achieve that? So let's get into work. So for this, we have index.html here, and one thing I'm going to do here is convert.html to .php. So I'm going to rename this and change this one .php like that. Now we have PHP, the yes can remain, though we are not really going to use it, and I'm going to delete this comment here. So how can we make this use PHP? So the one thing we know for sure is that I can be able to add a list, and I can be able to select a given list, and I can be able to select a given list and um, add its tasks here. So let's try to kind of do this in the best way possible. So so for this list selection, this will be different pages, but for the tabs, they will kind of okay, even the tabs will be different. So let me say so. So let's change our project structure a bit to be able to handle that. So do new folder here and call this one lists. And in the lists, I'm going to do a new file, single.php. And for this file in lists, so this is for a single list, let's say. And in the list, we have the so-called state. So I'm going to create a different folder called state. And here I'm going to do a new file. For that, it's called to all.php. Save the file. After that, I'm going to do another file that is completed.php. Save the file. And finally, I'm going to do new file to incomplete.php. Save the file. So you can see we have added the number of files. That's single.php. Yeah. So let's do something about this. How we can be able to get to this single file here. So from the index page, we have the list here. So let's start by the basic thing, how to add a single. Yes, yes. Okay. So yeah, something has hit my head a bit. So since we already have this sort of all incomplete complete, then what we can do is instead of using different pages, let's just use a single page and remain with our tabs, but change the functionality or the way they work out. So we just remain with a single.php only for that one. So let's reduce this. So we won't be using this state at all, I think. Nope. This is a keylogger, so it's not necessary. We shall only be using single.php file to handle everything. So let's add a new list using PHP. So for PHP, we know that we had this form here. It's called the list form. So I'm just going to get rid of this ID or just rename the ID to something else so that it will do the normal procedures of reloading the page. That's all that we want. And we are going to read or use this form to add a new list item for our list or group list. So here we are going to add action, and for the action we are going to leave it blank, and also we are going to add a method. And for the method we are going to use post. We could have used get, but post is more secure. Or we don't want to show our list item name list name on top of the URL. We just want it to be somewhere secure, like it's not visible. So how can we do that one? So I'm going to do some PHP here, question mark PHP, HP. I'm going to close PHP like that. And here I'm going to do if statement is set $_ post. So the variable I'm tracking here, add list. If somebody clicks on the add list button, and this button we have said it's type of submit, we're going to add another attribute here called name, and we are going to name it as add list, like that. So all we have done here is to add the name to the button. That same name that we have added to the button is what we are going to use to look for in the post using the isSet method. So isSet kind of helps us catch an error, and if there's an error, it fails. If there's no error, it proceeds and it returns true. And here we're going to write our code. The first thing we are going to get from our form is the list name, list underscore name. Also, it comes from $_post. The variable name is list underscore name, like that. So currently we don't have any input that has list name like this, but we are going to read it from here. So we are going to add another attribute here called name, and we pass it their list name. This way I said names have their own use cases, very important and critical when using forms in HTML. So that's where names are being used. So for this case, list name is going to identify this input, and it will help us read whatever somebody types in here. So we have our list name here as a variable. Then we can just maybe do a check as echo the $list name, like this. So we'll just test this one out and see whether it's echoing something out in this particular point. So I reload the page. This one I've persisted here, so I'll just delete them and reload the page again, no lists. But if I do YouTube list like this and add the list, it's going to refresh, and you'll be able to notice it has printed something on top of here, like it has said YouTube list there. But exactly this is what we really intend to do, like printing out things here. So the next thing we're going to do is to learn how to use SQL to be able to store this information in the database. For that reason, we are going to go to localhost because we're using SAMP localhost, and we walk right into PHP my admin. So once PHP my admin is up, currently I have a number of databases here, but let's do some SQL here. So for this we are going to write some SQL, and also if you look at W3 schools, you will notice that SQL is part of the things I said we'll be covering when we'll be starting working on the backend. So let's give it a moment to load. So I said after covering HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, we are likely to cover PHP and SQL. We have done bit of PHP, or we have started working on PHP. So best it works with SQL or databases. So that's for PHP part, and also we have SQL here. Yes, yes, John. It's because you are using, yes. Uh, so for that, okay, just do this. Okay, yeah, there you go. Okay, so we are recovering currently PHP. We had done it from the previous weeks. We did it in about 3 days, and now we are introducing SQL. SQL will help us interact with the database. And for now, we are not going to cover a number of things with SQL, but the so-called CRUD or the basic functionality of SQL. So here we are going to do to create a database using SQL, and this one is going to be called TODO App database like that. So that's the basic syntax of creating um, uh, a database name. Or you could just come here and create new here using the new button there. The next thing we are going to do is select our database. We are going to use the use keyword, and we are going to say use to do app database. After that, we are going to now create uh, these things, the tables. That's the list table and also the to do items table. So how do we do that? We just say create table. The first table is list table, and for this list table, oh, it should be brackets. It's going to take in a few things. The first one being the ID of the list item. Actually, let's change this one to list items like that. List items, or how did we call them in the front end? Lists. Okay, we can just do here lists instead. Just make sure that you don't use inbuilt keyword. For example, list is inbuilt keyword, so you can't really do list. So lists instead. The first field into lists is the ID, so that each list can have its own ID or its unique identifier. So we have lists, and we're going to do this will be an integer, and the length of this integer will be about 11 characters long. And also we are going to say this is the primary key, and also it's not going to be null either, and it's going to have auto increment with it. That's for the ID of each list item or list group. Then the next thing we're going to do is the name, which is a character field or a string field. And for this case, we're going to use a varchar. And the length of this list name can be up to a maximum of, let's say, 50 characters. We don't really want somebody doing something which is long, so 50 characters. And also we're going to say not null. But for this, it's not primary key, or it's not going to have auto increment. Then we are also going to do created on, just to track when this list was created, and we're going to use a date time. Is it date? It can be a date time or a date field, or we could do a timestamp field. And in this case, it's going to have the default value of current timestamp like that. So that's for the lists table. That's the one that's going to track here the so-called okay, currently we have gotten rid of that YouTube, Project X, Project Y, and all those sort of stuff. That's for the names. Now the next thing we're going to do is, and if you look at my SQL, I'm closing most all of these lines with semicolons like PHP. So you have to kind of close a statement. This is called SQL statement with a semicolon. And if you look at this particular point, I'm using commas, and the last one does not contain a comma because it will result to an error. So you don't add a comma at the end of the last item or a field name in a list. The next thing we're going to have is another table, and this one is going to create to be called create table to do's. And for this one, it's going also to have, I believe, these two first, like that. Oh, in fact, even the last one. It's going to be similar like that one, but for this case, we are going to do and add another field that uh, is called the list. We can't do or use list or group here in this case because they are all keywords, but instead we are going to just say, we can even do list key like that, and it's going to be an int 11. It's not going to be null either. So one thing here you might notice, I've just said here an int. In fact, we could have just said this is uh, a foreign key, except I'm not sure how to do that one. Let's stick to what first I know. That one will, I think, debug it by tomorrow. So the list key is going to be the key of this list ID, this one. That way you can be able to track this to do item is for this list. And also here, instead of doing name, we are going to do description of the to do item itself. Then the length can be to up to a maximum of, let's even say, 255 characters. So that's the length. Then I do a semicolon at the end. What's it saying? I have no idea. So let me just copy my text in case it goes off. So I'm going to click go, and you will realize the SQL was executed successfully. That is, it returned empty. That is, it created a database called TODO App. It selected it using use TODO App, and then it went ahead to create a table called lists, and finally it created a table called to dos. So if I go to that database, if I select it from this left side, you will notice it has two tables, lists and to dos. So if I click on lists, you will notice that it has the ID, name, and created on. If I go back and click on to dos, you'll notice it has the ID, list key, description, and created on. So that way we can go to say, okay, let's do this. Yeah, let's try this now. The next part is to read the database connection in our file. And for that case, I'm going to do just a different folder here. This folder is going to be called config, and the config is going to hold the database connection. So I'm going to create a new file, call this one db connection.php. Save the file under the config. So this way our file has been saved. It will only be containing PHP file, PHP code. So just do that. Yeah. Now what PHP code goes here? So for that, I'm going to walk you to PHP, and I'm going to show you how to connect using the so-called this sort of connection here. So I'm going to copy this code and explain it. I'll paste it here, move it forward. Yeah. So the server name is called localhost. That it's big. Okay, let me just leave it there. The username should be something else, and we don't have a password for our database connection. And here we are doing a new connection, and we are saving it to this variable or declaration here called con with this new MySQLi, a server name, username, and password. Also, you could do like the port as the last input, but by default, it has a default port. So it will just use the default port. And finally, if this is how you create a connection, check the connection. If connection error, if there's this connect error, just kill the connection or just report back and say something went wrong. Also, if it's successful, you can just do echo connected successfully, but I'm not going to use this echo for now. So how do we use the bb connection.php? I'm going to go to my index.php file, and on top of here where I've started my PHP, I'm going to write other PHP tags like this, close it, and in this case I'm going to use uh, a method called include to include my db connection file. So it's at // from where we are, go to config and select this file db connection.php. That's the file I want to include. So the moment you have included this file, it means it has given me the right uh, to have connection to the database. To confirm that if it's correct, just go to your file and refresh it. So it's going to tell me this. I'm going to hit like that. Yeah, so currently it's saying it's sort of a success, but in case it fails, that is if you forgot to add root here, for example, and you only had something else there. Let me just delete that and refresh it. You will notice, why is it not like failing? Maybe I'm not reading the connection itself, but it should just die here, kinda. Okay, I don't know why it's working. We'll just leave at that till it fails. So since we initiated a connection here, you need to close this connection whenever you are done using it. That is, I'm going to write another PHP tags here. Ah, alikutoka hivyo. Mm. So I'll just refresh my page to confirm whether everything is good. Yeah. So currently we have been able to like do open a connection to the database and read it. We hope it's working. So let's wait for the errors coming. So currently we were able to load this list name. So what next do we have is to save this into the database. So $SQL equals to, so how do we do that one? We are going to write SQL code here. That is, so the so-called, we are going to use insert into, where are we going to insert to? We are going to insert into the so-called lists. Uh, so before we even do this, maybe we do it from a different tab to illustrate before we use it in PHP. So let's go to SQL here. Let me select lists first. Go to SQL tab and try to write some SQL here. So in this case, I'm going to use the insert tab. If I click on it, it's going to give me some sort of this entry here. So let's use this one. It's saying insert into lists, the ID, the name, and the created one. But there are two fields here that we don't really need to pass in. The first one being the ID, because it's the primary key, it's auto-incremented, so it will be provided by the database by default. So we don't really need to do it by default. Next we have name and created one. Created one also, it has the default value on it, so it will like kind of read directly um, from the database the current time. So it means we only remain with a single value to insert. That's the list name that we should insert. So here I'm going to pass in maybe YouTube list like that. So I can close if I want to add or insert something else. So I'm going to go or click go here. So you will notice saying one row inserted row ID one. That's what it did. So if I go to browse, you will notice it has ID one, YouTube list, and the timestamp or the current time that it was kind of created at that particular point. So it means our SQL was executed correctly. So let's maybe add another thing. So I'm going to use the insert. Did I copy this thing? Nope, I didn't copy it. Yes. Okay, thank you for bringing that one up. SQL in full means structured query language. This is the language to that works with databases, if I may say. Though, yeah, it's the language that works with databases. This means that if you have a database, to communicate with the database, you need to use this sort of language. It's like PHP, but made specifically for databases, and all databases kinda use the same structure, except for the so-called SQL databases that kind of have their own implementation depending on who built the NoSQL database. But in short, for all databases to read the database data, work with databases, you kind of have to use this language, structured query language. So we'll just walk right here, click there. If you look here, it doesn't have a lot of things, but they're kind of complex. You really need to do exercise with them before they mess with you. But this one will help you interact with the database. The best way to learn it, I realized, is if you use it with a project. And one of the projects that gives you a way of writing just this sort of raw SQL is just to do it with PHP. So if you do PHP and SQL together, as you did HTML, CSS, and JavaScript together, they kind of marry each other so that you use the SQL to work with the database, use PHP to process the data before storing it into the database. So SQL and PHP for this case, they work together, but the same SQL is being used in conjunction with Python, Java, and the rest of the languages. So, yep, that's it about SQL. I didn't introduce it in the right way, but let's read here. SQL is a standard language for storing, manipulating, and retrieving data in databases. Our SQL tutorial, okay, this is about the three schools, but as you have heard, it works with databases. So, and it runs on not databases, but kind of, it's executed on databases. Yeah, so that's why it can run. Uh, have I answered your question? Okay. So we can just do another insert here. Insert into lists the name and the values we are going to insert are, so in this case I'm going to write here project X, for example. Do a semicolon, copy this statement, repeat it down and insert several values like that. So the project X, let's do Facebook ads, Google ads, and finally we can just even do, that's all about social media marketing. So we can add another value like yeah, let's do SEO on site X, like that. So I have those four new lists to add. If I click go, what's this? You have an error. Oh, name. Right. I think I need to use backticks instead here, instead of using the quotes. Just a moment, I quickly add them in. There we go. Let's try again. Click go, and there we go. So you will notice saying inserted this into that. So if I go back to the browse, all the lists have been added. So before we use PHP to insert our own list from PHP, let's kind of read them from that side and print them out here where we should have those lists. So how do we do that? It's really heavy. I also don't recall, but let's try. So I'm going to read all those lists here. Where can I read them best? I can read them here. So $sign lists equals to list query equals to, so for this SQL, in short, let's change this one to SQL like that. It's going to select, I'm only going to select name from, so which table? The table is called lists. So that's for SQL. So select what I want to select from lists. It is the same as you could come here and do this one. Select star from lists where. So this where clause is like adding the condition where this matches that. So, but for this we are just writing select. So star means here everything. It's the same star we were using when we were doing our CSS. Star as a selector, that's a global selector selecting everything. But for this case, we don't want to select each field. In this case, it means select all the fields. That's the ID, the name, and the created one. We are only selecting the name from lists where we don't have the condition. So it means just select all the lists, but only return the name only. Then we need to kind of execute this using the con, and results equals to. So if you do recall, we had this connection, and this connection comes in with a few methods or some methods that can help us query the database. That is and the con query, and for that we are going to query this SQL. So if I do that and try to print out this result, so I'm going to use, can I use, oh, okay, we can just do for dump the results like that. So if I do that one and come here and refresh, we are into problems because everything is not working. Yeah. So here we had insert query SQL. Where were we? Nope, not like this. Just a moment. It wasn't supposed to be there. It was supposed to be here. Yep, like this. So, and whatever we are querying is this SQL. Refresh the page. I'm still getting errors. I'm not sure why my query is not working, meaning everything is just downhill. So how can we solve that one? The good thing is that we have W3 schools here as a helper. So just scroll down, go to, we have this PHP OOP. This is the so-called object-oriented programming. We are not into that fully. We just want to work with databases. So let's try to read. Yeah. Not, yeah. Let's use this one, MySQL select data. So this means select this from that, and we have the connection, query the SQL. Yeah, we also have the result, rows, row fetch a sock, those. Okay, so this means our code with written it well, I think. Select some field from some table. So let's just confirm that. select name from lists. Except they don't have like kind of have these back quotes. I don't know why it should have failed, but should have just worked without problems. And then they run the results using con query the SQL. So let's just confirm that SQL is that's the connection query SQL. Yep, we did that exactly. Oh yeah, I think we missed this one, the database name. Yeah, that was what I was looking for. Yeah, but this one is now failing without giving us the right thing. So $sign DB name. This is where you set your database name, and for ours was called TODO App. I need to add it as the fourth argument here, DB name, like that, so that it can be able to kind of interact with the exact database name. So if I refresh this one, still errors are occurring the way they want. So let's try to see why they are occurring. Uh, let's return a root here for our username first. Be secure. Refresh, still the same errors. Maybe we are doing everything wrong, so we'll just comment out this and make sure that our code runs before that. I'll just do connection close. Not working. Is this thing cached? Sort of. Yeah. Robin, can you see an error from afar? Yeah, that's the problem. We were missing a semicolon somewhere. Everything was like, no, we are not working. No, we are just resting. No, so for PHP, we don't really have like inspect. You kind of have to do. You kind of have to identify the error. Currently, I've not come across a solution that can help you know where the error is exactly at that particular point. But all you need to do is whenever you write some PHP or some logic, just run it out or just refresh your page to make sure you don't have an error at that particular moment. Because some other errors like this one that says 500 internal server error, if I may return it, like this one, you see it has no information unless you go to the server logs, and that is come right to PHP there, go to Apache web server and try to find out where the application log is. No, just the server logs for Apache web server. I'm not sure where you can find them. They are somewhere where you can find them, I believe. So logs and access, is it the access log? No, PHP error log. This can give you the all the errors that you are. It's really large. So just a moment, it loads this. Yeah. Just a moment. My machine has totally decided to hang. Okay, so my machine is total down for trying to open that file. So just avoid it. But that's where you can get the other logs. So just do the comma there and we get back to work. I refresh the page. You can be able to see it saying something here. It's kind of read the database and got this information from it. But you can see something critical here. That is the num rows. It means the result gives us back the num rows. So we can be able to read the num rows. If it's greater than 0, then do something with it. So how can we do that? So if we look here, they are saying if the result num rows is greater than 0, that's the num rows. It's like a key that we can be able to notice from this print dumped out data. So let's use it as they have used it. So if the result num rows is greater than 0, so I'll just copy this and just delete this one, change this to list results. And where do I render my lists? This is where I'm going to render out my lists. Oh, just a moment. So here I'm going to write another PHP code like this. Then I need to uncomment this. So in this, I'm going to do just do this one, copy and paste it here. So if the result num rows is greater than 0, that's the thing. Else, if it's not greater than 0, I want you to print out this. So just copy that and do some PHP here. That's I'm just going to echo it out like that as a string. So paragraph, but that way. Then this one we had this list item active and all those. So I'll just copy that one. And I'm going to use this one while loop to print out my PHP code. So I'll just copy that one while and paste it there. So that's the closing point of this while loop. But you'll notice we are supposed to write some HTML here. So can decide to do like print out this list item. So copy that up to there and do echo it out. And here instead of my to-dos, I'm going to do that one and do $ row name like that. But for the reasons as to we are using quotes here, then quotes, all those, that's a problem. So just change that one to single quotes. Then here we have this quotes. Then we have this dot row here. Then I need to close the first quote, link that one with the dot, and I do the next quote, start a new, like that. So I have this sort of uh, li list item active row name. So if I do that and come back to our page and refresh, so it's still saying there are no lists add some. So I think I missed something. It's because we are using result, but we change this one to results. So just do change this one to that and reload the page. Yeah, you will note something else. Everything has kind of failed out, meaning we missed something somewhere. So let's try to see where. While MySQL fetcher soak the result, yeah, it will be have been this, change it there too. and refresh the page. So I'm still getting there are no lists add some. Is this thing kind of joking around? Just if that in this query that it gave me 5. I'm doing echo here while can I maybe do something else here? Do a different echo. Um, there are some lists. There are no lists at some. Why is it printing the else statement? List results num rows is greater than 0, or they are already deleted. Let me just confirm. Browse. Yeah, we do have our 5 lists item there. Yeah. So just problems, a few bugs we need to deal with. Why is this not working out? And I kinda print you out dollar sign that and I see what you are having. What are you hiding? Okay, Vardamp, what do you give me? So still Vardamp not giving me anything. Okay, let me move this a bit down to where we are using them. But I don't understand why they should fail totally. Is it about this one? Should it be about that one? Oh, why is this not working? This is funny. This one goes there. This one was giving us some results before. It decided to not give us the results, meaning something weird is just going on. Um, ah, Robin, you said Mwalimu left. It's the time. It's that time. Uh, let's try. But why could this work on the other side and here it fails? It totally fails to work. Yeah, ikitaka kukufinyia chini na kufinyia tu na kufinya tu. Maybe it has to do with, si ndio hiyo kitu yenye tunatafuta. So do it has to do with the way we, yeah, I think let's see include once nione vile itafanya. I read the context, I read the connection in short. Let me try to verdamp the connection itself. Sort of connection I fit to. Ah, sijui mbona ikataa. But I did. Let me see. Nope, that's not even critical. In short, the connection is working, but at this particular point, but the moment I try to kind of do some PHP code that's not for this, it fails. So what I will do, I'll be forced to do that. Open a single tag there, but this should like give me the connection anyways whenever I want to use it. Let me see, let me see, let me see. If I do you here, what will you give me? Still, you are not working. I did just alitoroka ako, so hapa kimeniramba, but there is no problem. Let's see where the error is. It's called debugging. Since including it here either does not help from a point of view, and I don't understand why it shouldn't work totally. Not that it's not working. I'm sorry, people. It's because of few problems here and there. I think you will bear with me in this. I had just remembered something else, something which is not good. So it should work without us interfering with anything else. So let me return everything the way it was, then explain what's happening. Yeah, here's the thing. So remember we were using JavaScript before to do our code here. So even if I were to delete everything, everything is commented out, you will notice it's still saying there are no lists, add some. So the main reason as to why it says so, it's because it's using JavaScript to update this page in this particular point. So I'll be forced to shut you down. Very problematic. Now we have our code there. So I will just disable this and we continue with our own problems. Yeah, that was the mess. That was the only mess. Yeah, I forgot we were using Java. Yeah, JavaScript affects this because in JavaScript we have this render. Uh, there are no active list. There is no active list. There are no lists. Do you see this? There are no lists. Add some. So this is the code being rendered, and this code always runs on initializing the app. That is app.init. It will always do all that stuff of rendering where it. Yeah. So that's what has been causing me headache. Yeah, haiko bwana, na tumeshinda. JavaScript is just giving us problems. Yeah, I'm just trying to find in that my own function. I confirm how my list item looks like. It has the delete button, so I think I'll just need to copy this because this is more of accurate or it has enough information. So what we could do here, if you recall, I said we are using while loop here. So there's one more thing we can do to write readable HTML. So we just break our while loop and this write new PHP codes. I'll just break it there, and I will end my PHP here like that. Uh, I'll close PHP here, then write some list item there. So we'll just do that. I'll move it forward a bit like that. Then yeah. So this way is where PHP becomes powerful. So I started my while loop here. I needed to end the while loop. So what I do here is I just come in this other PHP type and I do end while like that. Also we did if statement here. The best thing is I do that, like use a colon like that. Just delete this, have my else statement, and finally I end if here like that. So this will ensure PHP is just running the way it should, like the while loop comes, closes there, else do that. But believe let's try it out, but let's replace what we should replace. Here we had the activate list item. Should we continue using this? I doubt. We are not using it. So delete the that one. And also I'm going to just delete this data list. And finally I'm going to delete the ID. Do I need the ID? Not that much. Then I need to render out the name of that list. So I'll just do PHP code here again. PHP, and in this case I'm going to echo $sign the row now, this row, and what I'm going to render out is the name itself, then close PHP like that. That's one. The next one we had this delete list. I'm just going to delete this like this, and just have a delete button. Let's see what we have. Refresh the page, pure problems. So why do we have these problems? I think it's because of my while loop. So while wrote that, can I kind of get rid of this for now in case it's the problem? Refresh the page. Yeah, that was the problem. So how do we add? So if can only run that way, maybe the else statement that I had here, I need to just do sort of the same thing instead of writing something. Let me try with that one. Yeah, sort of it's working. Yeah, it's working. So else I can also do it because I'm using this sort of colonies. I can't do the normal else statement just like that. So we can say we have been able to render all these list items. Now, how do we write back to the database? Let's say we wanted to add another list. All these lists we added them using so this other structure or using this interface here. So how do we kind of add from PHP or from our form, this form here? So that's where we are heading next. We had started working on it here, where we are going to read or send this form to this page. This where's the form? Where's the form here? This form here is going to be sent to this page using, and we are going to read the list name and add list name from the button. So that's why I said if it's set post add list, this is set checks whether this add list key is available in the post super global. So after that, if it's set to add list is available, it means somebody clicked on the add list button. That's the button with this name. Then just go in and say the list name equals to the post list name. That's why I said the names have their critical usage in HTML as attributes for inputs. So this input has the name of list name. Now we are not going to even use the list input ID, no. We just want the name, the list name. We are reading it. Then we said we were able to read that. The next thing, we were to create a new SQL syntax to insert into the list table. So we were writing it, insert into lists. And what are we inserting? This kind, did I forget? Let's see how we do the inserts. Oh, just like that. Okay. So whatever we are going to insert into list is just like that. We do a bracket. Then we're going to insert the name, only name, like that. And the values that we're going to insert are this value, the list name that we have now from list name. And whenever you are passing these values, remember to pass them using quotes, like that. Oh, it's not working. Is that one working? Nope. Just pass it in like that. And once I've done my statement, I can either add a semicolon or don't add it. It's not a must. But if you have several of these insert statements, then best that you do a semicolon, then you do another insert. Then we are going to execute this SQL. So dollar sign is added. So this will be a boolean. We just maybe follow through. We are going to call the connection again. And in this connection, we are going to query like that. And what we are going to query is this. Let me just do list add SQL here. List add SQL. We are going to query this list add SQL to the database using SQL. Then you can just do if is added, dollar sign is added. Oh, I need to even check if it's true. I think this, what is the return statement of this? I'm not sure. We'll just confirm that one. I want to set or refresh this page or return to this page in another format. So I'm going to say the location is dollar sign forward slash, just come back to this page, PHP, and just say success like that. So you'll notice maybe if this is correct, it is going to add success on the URL. So we'll refresh this page. We have internal server error. So what's the error about? So first we had that I need to do a semicolon there, and I need to return this like that. Refresh the page. Now we have our page working well. Maybe I say a new list entry and click add. So yes, it has added return to this page, but we are having problems. It kind of failed along the way while it was trying to add the new entry, so it didn't finish up adding to this page. So I think is added is not what I expect. So let me just confirm. Insert data. So insert into that, saying to do that con query equals to true. Yeah, I did that. I believe I must have done it in the wrong way. So let's do an else statement here. Else, I'm going to return to this page again, but failed, with a failed flag. Yep, like that one. So just refresh the page and try to add a new entry. Add, it didn't even reach there. So let me see why it didn't reach there. I'm going to echo dollar sign is added and just comment out this. Why is it even failing in the first place? It's not giving me the right thing that I expect. Yeah, so let's see where we missed it. Insert into that. Okay, I think, let me see. If I get rid of name there, I get rid of these sort of things that we are that work with will you work out. So let's see. Refresh the page and refresh this one. Nope, it has not added it, because if I try to refresh it, it will take me to do this, and it's not like giving us something that we can work with, meaning we are into fire again. Will you be the cause, or should this be the cause? Or I think I'm into this. Let me see how. Okay, where does it fail at? This is what I'm trying to insert into lists, the name values. Let's maybe I'll call this value a new entry like that, and see what the result will be, because I'm unable to find out the reason as to why it's not working. Yeah, if that one worked out well, meaning the problem was just here. How do we insert this? If I do that, the list name, then it's not going to kind of work out. I think I'm doing it in the wrong way. Just a moment, I confirm. So we'll let that one remain as that one, and see why it's not working. Okay, it's because I'm not getting like syntax highlighting. So yeah, the quotes must is a must. So don't miss those quotes unless you are trying to add an integer. Otherwise, just have them quotes then the list name. Yeah, that was the short problem we were having. So let's try to add another one. Another one here. So I add that, returns me to the same page with that. So even if I were to refresh this page, you'll notice I do have my lists here. So yeah, that's the first part, and I can say we have successfully added lists using our interface to the database. So they are all added here. So for the latest one, that was another one here, you'll notice it's here also. So that's a bit sort about this. So I don't know whether to proceed to this or just leave at this. What are your views, John? So I leave it at here to avoid the video being long. Uh, I think, yep. Yeah, so I'll just post the class here.